I love Tony Alford, and as many of you know, I am a Michigan fan who has a massive amount of respect for Ryan Day, his staff, his players, and Ohio State football as a program. And if you've been watching this channel for a substantial amount of time and you've been closely following this channel, you will know that even more so, I have a great deal of respect for Ohio State's running backs and their running back room as an entire unit. Entering 2022 and entering 2023, and I will say yet again entering 2024, I will have held, or for 2024, hold the belief that Ohio State's running back rooms have the potential to be the best in the country and will certainly be one of the best in the country. Now, in 2022 and 2023, injuries to the running back room, which I tie back to strength and conditioning, and mediocre to poor offensive line performance in run blocking, which I tie obviously to the offensive line, derailed what could have been two elite Ohio State rushing offenses. And we will see if that changes this season. However, one change that will obviously impact both Michigan and Ohio State this season, also in relationship to Ohio State and Michigan's running backs and running back room as a unit, is that Tony Alford is leaving Ohio State for Michigan to coach the exact same position. This is not a promotion where he's going from running backs coach to offensive coordinator or probably even a co-offensive coordinator tag. Tony Alford, for job security reasons and for the fact that Michigan is paying him more, and it seems that Michigan wants him more than Ohio State, he is taking up residence in Ann Arbor from Columbus. And as someone who, as I said at the beginning of the video, I love Tony Alford. I think he was one of Ohio State's best assistants year in, year out. This is probably Sherrone Moore's best hire of the 2024 preseason. And I want to talk about what this means for Ohio State, what this means for Michigan, in particular, Alford's resume combined with a Michigan running back room that loses Blake Corum but returns Donovan Edwards, and Benjamin Hall will have a year of experience under his belt, and Jordan Marshall, who was actually recruited by Alford to come to Ohio State but chose Michigan and Mike Hart. He'll now be, in a certain sense, reunited with one of his primary recruiters. So there's a lot that really ties in here because Alford's going from one elite blue blood program to the rival of that program in Ohio State, who is also elite blue blood program in Michigan. We're going to talk about all of that here on College Football with Sam. And before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so that you can get notified when I release more content on Michigan football, Ohio State football, Big Ten football, and college football in general. This is the best Big Ten football channel on YouTube, and I love to cover the game, and I love to specifically look at Michigan and Ohio State, as I think they're some of the best programs in the country, obviously, with massive fan bases, massive histories, and over the past 3 seasons, they have been the 2 best teams by, in some cases, a mile in the Big Ten. And with Oregon coming in this year, with Penn State returning more production than both Ohio State and Michigan, maybe that'll be challenged again. But I think there's a better chance than some would like to admit that these might be the 2 top teams in the Big Ten yet again. So for preseason news, for preseason opinions, and also for the regular season, when I do live reactions to games every weekend, so on and so forth, it's so worth it to just subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and like the video and comment your reaction to this so we can get into the algorithm and also so I can get your analysis. You probably see something that I don't. What do you think? How big of a loss do you think this is for Ohio State? Let me know. I was just listening to Zach Smith's Menace to Sports live stream reacting to this, and he thinks that Alford was one of the best assistant coaches, and that this is a bigger loss for Ryan Day and Ohio State football than some would like to believe. It's not the end of the world, obviously, and Ohio State can hire someone just as good or better given their salary pool and the situation of their awesome running back room, but it's still a big loss. And it's a big gain for Michigan, certainly. So let me know what you think down below. And last but certainly not least, if you want to support the channel and gain some access to bonus content, there will be an article dropping tonight with a detailed explanation for all of my top 25 rankings. And in hopefully a week or two, but it could be longer depending on when I get my templates, there'll be a top 25 video on YouTube that will follow up that article. It'd be good to read that article to give some background to my opinions, and also you can get your name featured at the beginning and end of every video while supporting what we do here on College Football with Sam. Check that out via the link in the description or the pinned comment. You can also find my merchandise store there. And thanks to Crash2488 for being a Heisman member, to Spencer Bringhurst, Chris Lane, and SFS Inverter for being All-American members, and Will Loftus, Gabriel Calendar, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, Zubin Zah, and Janisha Cockrell for being all conference members. I first want to talk about the impact on Ohio State. And I think that the impact won't be immediate because this running back room features TreVeyon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Dallin Hayden, James Peoples is going to be a true freshman this season. And look, Mayan Williams and Chip Trainum going to the NFL and Kentucky, respectively, neither were as good as Judkins was in 2023 or 2022 when he was a true freshman. Judkins is coming into Ohio State. He's expected to compete with Henderson and play in a rotation. Wouldn't be shocked if you saw two running backs on the field at the same time for Ohio State. These players are elite. They're not just really good, they're not great. Judkins and Henderson are both NFL running backs. Like right now, they are both NFL caliber running backs. They have the skill set, they have the size, they have what it takes to play in the NFL. And both will be starting for Ohio State at running back and be in a consistent, balanced rotation. Now, Alford's departure is huge, and depending on who Ohio State hires, depending on how quick they follow through with that hiring, how fast they get it done, and also depending on the results of spring camp and practice, you could see maybe a transfer out of that running back room and who follows Alford to Michigan. Now I say maybe, and I don't think that'll happen. Michigan returns Donovan Edwards, Benjamin Hall's a rising star, and Kalel Mullings comes back as well, all of whom I think will benefit from Alford and from his coaching. So Michigan does have a deep running back room, but it's not as deep as Ohio State's is, and I do think a player such as Hayden or anyone better than Hayden, there are people who are, for probably ridiculous reasons, could even speculate that Henderson or Judkins might go to Michigan. Any of those who I just named, those three running backs, could probably be anywhere from number 1 to number 2. Ohio State just has the deeper running back room compared to Michigan entering 2024. But I think what you'll see is an impact in the medium to long-term future. That's where I think you'll see the impact, because Henderson is going to the NFL after this year. He will be selected in the 2025 NFL draft, and I imagine that Judkins will leave as well. Granted that he has another 1,000+ yard season, does perform well in big games and performs well on film and flashes off his skill set, his power, etc. From there, you might see an impact. I think that on the field, you won't see much this year, but medium, long-term future, I do think there'll be an impact. The rushing attack has been inconsistent since 2021, and I have seen people, whether it's Ohio State fans or otherwise, say that this loss has to do with the fact that he hasn't been performing well. And J.K. Dobbins was the only running back that he recruited that got drafted. Ezekiel Elliot was already on campus, and Mike Weber did well in college, but didn't translate to the pros. Trey Sermon transferred in, but Henderson is going to be drafted. He's going to be after this season. So you have to count that to Alford's resume. And producing NFL prospects is important, but we're also talking about winning games in college. And there are great college players who don't exactly translate to the NFL. There just are. Hassan Haskins at Michigan, great running back. Loved him. But he wasn't drafted high in the NFL. He wasn't, and he's not a starting running back. That's just one example. Blake Corum, All-American caliber running back. He's probably not going to be a first-round pick, nor should he. Running backs, unless they are absolutely insane specimen, should not be picked in the first round. Like, unless you are a Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and even then my NFL knowledge is limited. I don't think you should be in that first round position. Saquon Barkley, for example, great running back. He was drafted too high by the Giants. Using that pick on him was just a mistake. Maybe that's just a personal opinion that I'm wrong on, though. But you can't tie. I think it's unfair, and I just think it's wrong to tie the struggles of Ohio State's run game and even individual running back performance to Alford. Now, you may say, why is that? Well, what's hampered Ohio State's running backs is, one, their health, which ties to strength and conditioning, ties to the nutritional program. It's not their skill set. When they are healthy, and when their O-line can actually block and not run into each other or commit holding penalties, they play well. They just do. Michigan game this season, were the running backs the problem? No. It was Kyle McCord, the interceptions, and Jim Knowles playing wide tech with a conservative defense and not trying to stack the box on Michigan's final drive until most of the clock was chewed up. In 2022, were the running backs the problem? Well, Henderson was dinged up. Williams was dinged up. You went all the way down to Chip Trayanum, which that's more of a roster decision by the head coach and the coordinators that the running backs coach, I don't know if he has that much input in. Trayanum did well against Michigan. He was not the problem. He was tearing it up early in the game, but it was Jim Knowles' defense. It was some play calling by Ryan Day, and Stroud had an off day, partially because of his own performance, but also Michigan's defense playing rather well. And in 2021, were the running backs the problem? No. Again, circle back to defense, circle back to the offensive line, circle back to Henderson having to run the ball 3 times in a row on Ohio State's first drive at a halftime. Super predictable play calling. The running backs have not been the problem for Ohio State. They will not be the problem this season. I can guarantee you that. It's the offensive line. It's strength and conditioning. These are 2 areas that Ryan Day chose not to make drastic changes and overhauls to. He did make some changes to strength and conditioning, and they used the portal to bring in Seth McLaughlin, and they convinced Donovan Jackson to return. So they did do some tweaks at those positions. Buckeye running backs have been insane. They've been elite. When healthy, Mayan Williams was awesome. Henderson was generational. Trayanum, when healthy and when playing, a lot like Hassan Haskins, in my opinion. Power back. Useful. He won the game against Notre Dame, and he looked good early in the season. And then toward the end of the year, as Henderson really began to break out and Williams got hurt, Trayanum he actually did better than Henderson in that game against Michigan. That, I don't know why I didn't mention that earlier, but Ohio State running backs, as I've already said many times, they have not been the problem with Ryan Day and with Ohio State football. They haven't. And I think that this is a loss that could have been avoided, but wasn't. And now Ohio State will have to hire a new running backs coach in spring, in March. The impact on Michigan Michigan had the nation's best rushing attack in 2022, and they produced great rushing offenses in 21, less so in 23 until the playoff came around. And then the rushing attack, particularly against Washington and at times against Alabama, did very well relative to the competing defenses. Mike Hart is a great running backs coach. He recruited Edwards. He helped develop Corum, develop Edwards, and he was entrusted to be an interim head coach when Jim Harbaugh was suspended for the first 3 games of the 2023 season. I like Mike Hart. Mike Hart was a great player in college. Mike Hart has been a great coach in the college realm. And when he was let go, that didn't exactly surprise me, because I heard reports a few weeks prior to the official announcement that him and Sherrone Moore were thinking about parting ways. But it surprised me at the same time, because I'm thinking, out of all the coaches to let go, running backs coach? Really? The position that has been Michigan's bread and butter outside of the offensive line and obviously defense, but that's a whole different side of the field. Really, out of all the offensive coaches, not wide receivers, which that's probably been, outside of maybe quarterback, the weakest link of Michigan for the previous 3 seasons. What about tight ends? Is tight end a more or less important position than running back? I would lean towards saying, with Michigan's style of play and the fact that they have used extra offensive linemen, I would say running back is more important for Michigan, at least. But he parted ways with the program. His contract expired. It's not been renewed. It's reportedly for personal reasons. And as a Michigan fan and as someone who respects great coaches and players, I hope Mike Hart is okay. And I hope that he has a great professional career. And I would like to know why he was let go. Because depending on the reason, that may not be a move exactly that I respect. In the case of letting him go when he did his job and did it well, at least in my opinion. But I'm not in the locker room. I'm not a coach. So I trust Sherrone Moore and the staff more than I do my own outside perspective. What I do know is that Tony Alford is one of the few running backs coaches who is better at his job than Mike Hart is. Tony Alford has a better track record of developing high-ceiling NFL-level players. Tony Alford has had a longer tenure as a running backs coach and has recruited better at multiple locations, like Notre Dame and Ohio State. Tony Alford is a veteran. He also, like Mike Hart, played well in college. Getting a little bit into his resume, which is not exactly what I'm talking about right now. I want to focus on his impact on Michigan. We'll get to the resume in a few seconds more in detail. But this is a great hire for Michigan. Any Michigan fan who isn't bouncing off the walls and laughing and crying tears of joy at this hiring, which I was when it was announced, is asinine. This is a great hire. And you will see I think you'll see immediate impact here. I say that because look at the running back that Alford has developed at Ohio State. Henderson, for the previous 3 seasons. Now, is TreVeyon Henderson more like Blake Corum? Or is he more like Donovan Edwards? Well, the answer to that when watching game film of both is it's simple. Edwards is the home run hitter. You get Edwards in space, he's gone. There is no catching him. Edwards does wonders with the ball out of the backfield or as a receiver. Corum is shifty. Corum is high football IQ. Corum is the toughest out of all those running backs I mentioned, but he doesn't have that same breakaway speed in space, receiver ability. He doesn't have the same height either. Henderson and Edwards have significant inches on him in terms of height. I think that with Alford's brilliant development of Henderson's going to be one of the best running backs in the country this season. Last year, you factor in the injury, I think he was one of the country's best running backs. He just played behind an offensive line that was extremely boom or bust. He either got a long run or he couldn't do all that much. and he still made some magic happen. I think that his development of Henderson, and he's also developed players like Dobbins and Elliot who are more hard hitting. He has that resume of developing multiple running backs with a diverse set of skills. I think that translates well when you look at Donovan Edwards and the fact that he can be a Swiss Army knife. Donovan Edwards can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can catch it downfield. He can line up on basically next to the sidelines and go vertical. Seen it against Purdue. He can be a home run hitter, and maybe he can be developed into, taking more punches and being more of a fist, of a train, a tank. Who knows? I think that you'll see immediate impact from Michigan and also long-term impact as well. I do think Michigan recruiting will benefit from the hiring of Alford. Corum leaves, and that absolutely stinks, but Edwards will benefit, Mullings will benefit, and Mullings will be that nice counter, almost the opposite extreme to Donovan Edwards, where Mullings, yes, he does have some speed, shockingly for his size. Mullings is really a fullback running back hybrid. And then we have Benjamin Hall, Jordan Marshall coming in, and a running back room that is deeper than one would expect with the loss of an all Big Ten, All-American player like Corum. Alford's resume is elite. It just is. He was at Ohio State for 9 years as associate head coach and running backs coach. He recruited and or developed one or the other or a combination of both. Ohio State running backs Ezekiel Elliot, Mike Weber, who was from Michigan, got offered by Michigan, chose to go to Ohio State, and J.K. Dobbins. J.K. all day Dobbins, the guy who burned Michigan year after year after year, especially in that 2019 game where Michigan defensive ends, I think even Aiden Hutchinson was a part of this, tried to untie his shoe and got a penalty. It's fascinating how after 2019, you'd think that Michigan and Harbaugh were just never going to get it done. And then 21, 22, and a 23 they do. Times do change quickly. It's the same thing in the 2019 preseason. Al Washington and Greg Madison got poached away by Ryan Day, and Tony Alford got poached away by Michigan. Times change. And I'm not saying this to say that Michigan dominates Ohio State right now, because returning production, home field advantage, and everything leading up to the 2024 edition of the game says otherwise. But Michigan has been an underdog in terms of public betting for the previous, really, 3 seasons. And in terms of outright spread, they've been an underdog for 2, and Michigan is 3-0 in the previous 3 seasons. So the competition between these two schools just continues to reach new levels. Of course, with the 12-team playoff, there won't be a game with the same consequences ever again, like last year's edition of the game, unless Day or Moore or a future coach from either the Buckeyes or Wolverines is on the hot seat and they will be fired, and it's obvious they will be fired if they don't win the game. But nonetheless, Alford has been involved in the rivalry. He's recruited and developed rather well. And being at Ohio State for that period of time shows that both under Urban Meyer, a legend, and Ryan Day, who I think is one of the best head coaches in college football, that he can be trusted to do his job and do it well. And for Sherrone Moore to hire him, that's awesome. Plus, again, this current Ohio State running back room was assembled by him, and it's one of the best in college football. Judkins, elite SEC running back. Henderson, elite Big Ten running back. They complement each other well. I saw a little snippet of spring practice for Ohio State. Judkins is bigger than Henderson, and watching him at Ole Miss play behind offensive lines that were not very strong, and how shifty he was, the broken tackles, not just from power, but just from the way that he can move his legs, his hips, everything. Great running back, elite running back. I'm higher on him the more I hear people talk about him, the more I watch him, everything. That running back room was assembled, recruited, and developed in part by Tony Alford. Edwards, Mullings, and especially Hall and the younger Michigan running backs who will be exclusively developed by him will benefit immensely from Alford's coaching. I think Michigan football's recruiting will begin to pick up steam in the summer in part because of this hiring. And outside of Greg Scruggs, but I don't think so. I think Greg Scruggs was an elite hire, but I think this hire was even better. This is the best hire Sherrone Moore has made in this 2024 preseason for the Michigan Wolverines. And that's all I have to say in this video, giving about 20, 25, 30 minutes of my time to talk about Tony Alford and what this move means for Ohio State and more so for Michigan, who hired him just 2 hours ago at the time of this recording, or maybe even just an hour, 30 minutes ago. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you can be notified when I release more college football content. Thanks to Crash2488 for sponsoring this video as a Heisman member, Spencer Bringhurst for sponsoring this video, along with Chris Lane and SFS Inverted as All-American members, and thanks to Will Loftus, Gabriel Calendar, Matthew Sale, Roaming Gnome, Austin Christmas Zumanza, and Janisha Cockrow for being all conference patrons. Have a great day, guys. If you're listening on Spotify, check out my YouTube page via the link in the description. If you're listening on YouTube, it would benefit me to help me get on track to being monetized on Spotify for you to just follow the Spotify, even if you prefer to watch on YouTube. And the link to that's in the description. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.